You're watching Better Business Bureau's Business at its Best, brought to you by Ataraxis. You've got employees, we've got solutions. Human resources, insurance, benefits, and payroll. Our business is your business. BBB's Business at its Best.
Inside the mind of a criminal. This is Business at its Best, and tonight the show is focused on the anatomy of crime. We're going to show you what the bad guys are trying to do, and most importantly, how to protect yourself. We start at the Idaho Falls Police Department for a conversation about top crime concerns for police. Then a look at crime against business and how missing some key warning signs can cost you big. What are your obligations in the face of crime? You might think the answer is easy, but why does so much illegal activity go unreported? Then we go behind bars for a conversation with a convicted felon as he shows us what he did to leave a trail of victims across Idaho and the U.S. Now, we're talking about scams right now on Twitter. You can ask your question right there. Just hashtag BBB Trust. A big thanks to our media partners, Local News 8's Now channel in Idaho Falls and KTVB Idaho's very own 24/7 in Twin Falls and Boise. Business at its Best airs across Idaho each weekend from Boise to Twin Falls and Idaho Falls. We start our look at crime and how to fight it on the business front with Lieutenant Ken Brown of the Idaho Falls Police Department.
It's the American dream to be rich, and they're thinking, man, for $1,000, I can get $1 million or 1.5 or 2.5 million. You know, the normal general fraud or the normal scam that's going around are generally out of Nigeria or out of Jamaica, and it's some sort of, you've won a lottery, you've won $1 million, send us $1,000 to a P.O. box number, generally out of state, generally somewhere else, and we will send you the $1 million. I mean, I could go on story and story after story of people who are sending money, and it's not one in particular group of people. I mean, this hits every age group. We'll have people that'll call us and say, is this really a scam? And they'll start into it, maybe a quarter of a way or 5 seconds into it, we'll stop and go, hey, have you sent the money? Don't send it, this is a scam. And it's always in the back of the people's mind is this really a scam, or did I really win this money? It's very difficult, and our words to them is, have you ever, in your lifetime, have you ever gotten anything for free? Have you ever got $1 million for free? Have you ever gotten, $1 million or $4.5 million if you just pay $500, $1,000, or $2,000? And the answer is always no. And it's, well, why would this be different? And that little bit of hesitation is still in them. Trying to find these people is very, very difficult. In the fraud business or in the identity theft these days, you really have to be careful on what you put your name out for, what you're signing up for. Don't ever use your social security number. Don't give your social security number over the phone to people. Watch your garbage. Every year that are the ones that come in every year. It's the people who come in and try and prey on the elderly to repair their driveways, to repair their roofs, and things like that. Some of them actually will come in and do a little bit of repair, but they're just charging an outrageous amount. They're charging, $3,000 to $5,000 to $10,000 to come in and put a little bit of black on their blacktop. The card frauds that come through, join a credit card company, we'll pay you $500 if you join this company, and the company doesn't exist. If you're thinking in your mind, this could be a scam, it probably is.
Excellent advice. You just heard from law enforcement. Coming up later on Business at its Best, we go to the other side, behind bars, where one convicted felon tells us exactly how he carried out the crime to rip off thousands of dollars. First, protecting your business from scam artists who try to get you to pay for something that's really free. You're watching Business at its Best, presented by Ataraxis. Welcome back to Business at its Best. Our focus today is crime, especially how people are trying to rip off businesses. If you own or manage a company, you know there are certain things you must do to be legal. Well, the scam artists are seizing on the legal requirements to rip you off. Stephen Soleil of Ataraxis joins us, and thank you so much for being with us today.
Thanks.
Let's dive right into this. I know one of the first things we talk about, the fact that we have to have these legal posters up in the lunchroom, and the scam artists see that as an opportunity. So what are some of the most common ways you find businesses being ripped off?
There's you got to have the posters, like you said. And there's some legitimate services out there that will combine all the posters you need into one, and you get them for $20, $25. The ones that really rip you off are the ones that will sell you the individual poster, or they'll put you on a subscription, kind of like the old toner cartridge scam.
Yes.
Yeah, it's kind of the same thing. And so you buy one poster from them, and they'll ship them to you with an invoice. And what they're hoping is the invoice goes through to your accounts payable department, and they just pay it. And you just keep getting poster upon poster, usually individual ones. And so there's things you have to be watching for when you sign up for something like that. Buy it from a legitimate source.
And what you don't realize is that you can go to the Department of Labor website and download and print those posters for free.
Absolutely. Yeah, you can go to every website for a government agency and print every one of them for free. We talked about a while back about the labor poster that you're supposed to have up, which they're deciding now whether it's still going to be in effect or not, so you don't have to have that up yet. But you can go download that one specifically for free, and they've got it right on their front page. So every one of these can be downloaded for free if you want to go through that.
Let's switch gears a little bit and talk about how the scam artists are using technology to attack businesses.
Email. I mean, that's the big communication tool. That's what everybody uses. And so when you get an email, usually some official agency, it looks like an official agency, your bank, everybody's gotten the one that say your credit card statement, review this or something's happened. So banks, government agencies, BBB, different things like that are the ones that you'll get those emails from. They look very official. They've got all the logos. The links maybe even look like they could be real links. But you click on them and they're either going through to put some malware on your computer, or they're capturing some kind of information about your email so that they can use that in some other fashion.
And then some checks and balances that a business can put in place to protect against these types of scams.
Some of the ones is make sure your employees are informed about emails. Make sure that if they don't know the source it's coming from, that don't click on a link. Because that's the biggest thing that will happen. It's usually an employee who doesn't understand something, or they're clicking on something. And it's even if it's their personal email, they're viewing their personal email on the computer, if they click the link on that computer, it's that computer that gets affected. So that's what they have to be aware of, is just make sure that they don't click on things that they don't really know what they're for. Make sure that your accounts payable department has a good strategy in place for reviewing invoices that they don't know about. If there isn't a purchase order for it or some pre-appointed path for how they're going to be approved, tell them not to pay it and have somebody look at it.
All right. Great information for our businesses. Stephen Soleil, Ataraxis, the company, ataraxispeo.com.
Yes, sir.
On the web.
Thanks.
All right. This edition of Business at its Best is all about fighting scams. Coming up next, if you catch an employee embezzling, do you simply send them packing, firing them, and trying not to be embarrassed by the whole situation, or do you call the police? We're taking a look at the ethics behind reporting crime and what your obligations are when we come back. You're watching Business at its Best, presented by Ataraxis. Welcome back to Business at its Best. Our focus today, fighting crime in the workplace. On the face, it seems like an easy answer. What should you do if you catch an employee breaking the law? So many bosses think it's embarrassing, and they try to sweep it under the carpet by firing the person and then leaving it at that. Dr. Bill Russell is the Chief Legal Counsel for Northwest Nazarene University. He joins us today. Dr. Russell, thanks so much for being with us.
Good afternoon.
I'm going to give you a few scenarios that we see often play out for real. And like we said at the beginning, it's easy to understand why it's easy to think a business and play armchair quarterback that they're going to turn them into the police or required authorities. Oftentimes they don't.
Sure.
So the scenarios. Scenario number one, a competitor is operating without the necessary licenses and registrations.
Probably an ethical question, not a legal question, although in some professions you have an obligation to report violations. So for example, lawyers have to report on other lawyers, or they can be guilty of a crime. So the question of whether you report a competitor is something that is probably more ethical than it is legal. Ethically, keep in mind that what you're doing by not reporting is foisting that person off on other customers, and you're doing real damage to others if you don't report.
And your industry's reputation as a whole.
Absolutely.
Okay, so our second scenario, the business works in a home, HVAC, house cleaning, you name any of those service companies that go inside the home, carpet cleaners, and they discover some illegal activity in the home of a good customer.
First, get out. Number two, write off the word good before customer, because that's not a good customer anymore.
But they pay their bill every time.
Doesn't matter.
Good tip. Okay.
Again, it's probably more ethical than it is legal. Unless you get involved in some way that you're concealing or abetting, you're probably not legally obligated to report it. Although some aggressive prosecutors might decide they want to charge you with abetting or with obstruction of justice. So be careful. The bigger question is the ethical question. Do you have an obligation? And the answer, again, is a matter of societal responsibility. We use in ethics the phrase social responsibility. As businesses, we have some responsibility to society, and one of those is to help get the bad people out. So I think there's a strong ethical obligation. Hard to do sometimes.
Okay, so now this is the big one, because this drives fraud investigators crazy, because the number of the businesses that don't report employees when they're caught embezzling, they just fire them and turn them loose, really for the next employer to deal with.
You know, you feel a sense of loyalty, you don't want to be a tattletale, you've worked with this person for a long time, but you've hit the nail on the head. The problem is an ethical problem. If you don't report it, that person's going to go someplace else. You have a chance to stop it now, and if you feel some loyalty to that employee, understand that employee didn't feel any loyalty to you. Get over it, report it.
Excellent point. Dr. Bill Russell, NNU, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Great way to set our compass on what's right and wrong in the business sector. Well, Business at its Best is definitely here to help your company be the best it can be. Here are a few ways for you to protect your company from the scammers. Number one, have a computer dedicated to finances. That means no email or web browsing. You avoid viruses and malware that way. Put checks and balances in place for the person paying the bills to be sure they don't pay a fake bill. Sending fake advertising and office supply invoices, that is a favorite way for the scam artist to steal your money. And then tell employees to never release personal or private information through an unsolicited phone call. We're talking about fighting scams right now on Twitter. Ask your question. You can hashtag BBB Trust, and you can also add me as follow me on Twitter, DDBBB. Coming up later on Business at its Best, we go behind bars at the Idaho State Pen to learn from a convict. He shares his story of stealing thousands, how he did it, how you can protect yourself from someone like him. First, a private investigator joins us with a look at the scams targeting Idaho business owners. You're watching Business at its Best, presented by Ataraxis. Crime, scams, ripping you off. Welcome back to Business at its Best. Our focus is protecting you from those bad guys, saving you money. Neil Custer owns the Custer Agency and also Reveal Digital Forensics and Security. He works throughout Idaho helping companies protect digital information and respond to data breaches. Thank you so much for being with us, Neil. So as you're working with these companies throughout the state, what types of crimes do you see most often perpetrated against the business?
Well, more and more it's theft, but not in a traditional sense. It's the theft of information, theft of confidential information, proprietary information, customer information. It seems to be very lucrative for the bad guys.
And they're out working all the time to get in. What are you seeing on the cybercrime front? Because that's your specialty.
Yeah. Well, the three areas that we see smartphones as being targets. Mm-hmm. We see use of public terminals, like in libraries or any place that might have a public terminal. Those can put devices on them that will actually capture information. And we use use of public Wi-Fi, whether it be at airports, hotels, coffee shops, etc. Those are also subject to intercepting information.
So based on that, let's dive in now and get to the real protection aspect of what we're talking about here. And what are some of the ways that a business can protect itself from everything you just listed off, or any person out there?
Well, obviously one of the vulnerabilities in how they protect themselves is, for example, Dale, you use a cell phone, an iPhone. Smartphone. We've learned recently that there is a vulnerability in there that it captures information of the last 3 places that you've used it, whether it be your home wireless network, your business wireless network. And if you walk in with that phone in your pocket in a coffee shop, it's going to broadcast that to a sniffer and provide that information. As far as people need to be aware of smartphones and their vulnerabilities. People need to be aware of they need to train their employees on what to do.
But I want this sniffer technology. If this phone is storing the last 3 places I've gone, And so my house, I know I use a Wi-Fi there. But it's locked down, it's secure. I use a secure Wi-Fi at work. I never go and use the free Wi-Fi at a coffee shop or the airport, but it's still vulnerable.
Yes, what it does is it logs the MAC address of the last 3 locations that you have been. And then you can correlate that with Google Maps, and it'll oftentimes give you the latitude and longitude of those last 3 places that you were.
That's scary stuff.
And they have not fixed this bug yet.
So it's a bug, and basically anybody can just start scanning. If you have the right equipment, start scanning the room.
Yeah, I guess it couldn't be considered a bug. It's a vulnerability, something that should be aware of. Each time that there's a convenience added to a smartphone, there's something that kind of open the door. So
Okay.
it allows the smartphone to be quicker on the draw to recognize Wi-Fi connections, but it also allows a vulnerability.
So the biggest thing folks can do, keep the software on the phone updated from a security standpoint. Be aware of your surroundings, and realize that, and everything locked down just as tight as possible.
Yeah, and I recommend very strongly going through a vulnerability assessment, not only of all of your employees' computers at work, but looking at your smartphone situation on an annual basis.
Folks want to find you online, the web address?
It's neil@custeragency.com. That's
All right.
Neal.
Neil Custer, thank you so much for being with us today. Better Business Bureau has a number of resources to help you be responsive. Check out our website at bbb.org and go to Facebook, search for BBB Snake River Region, and then click the like button. Coming up next, a conversation inside prison with somebody carrying out the crimes, how he does it, and how you can protect yourself when we come back. Throughout this edition of Business at its Best, we've been showing you how scam artists have their sights set on you. We finish up today with Adrian Gunn. He was living the life. He had a business in Twin Falls, home on the golf course in Boise, condos in Florida and Portland, and he was definitely living the life until federal agents caught up with him. Adrian talked to us from behind bars about how he carried out the crime, the people he was looking to as victims, and then how to protect yourself. Here's Adrian's story.
The information that was given to me by one of my partners belonged to a gentleman who was mentally handicapped, and kids, social security numbers are obviously vulnerable. That's something that I ever did. ATMs, the whole skimming thing is big business now, but senior citizens seem to be a huge target. In this underground world again, phishing and skimming are, it's rampant. It's everywhere. Once I get Social Security number, I can do my own credit check. From there, it's a matter of a little detective work. Once you do a credit check on someone, you get a pretty good idea of who they are. And then, there's all sorts of information on the internet now. Again, I don't have to leave my home to find out who you are and what you're about. Once I've got your information and I'm begin to open these accounts, I can thwart through the security systems of the banks, the credit card companies, simply by fishing for information from them when I call. If my card doesn't work for a particular reason, they cut me off because their fraud department put a red flag on it, and I call in. I learned early on that the simplest way to get past the fraud department is to call, because the fraud department doesn't think that the criminal is actually going to call in. And so all you have to do is call in. Say you're this person. You're upset. You've been upset when your card doesn't work for some reason. So now I'm upset because my card doesn't work and I don't know why. Here I am, little Mr. Innocent, trying to use my card at the grocery store, at the furniture store, and it doesn't work. They'll ask you some security questions, and if you don't know the answer, a lot of times you can get the answer from them. Don't give out your information, period. That's the safest thing to say. If it's not your family, If it's not someone you're inherently close to, don't give out your information. Don't give it out over the phone, obviously. Don't give information out over the computer. Lock up your information, your personal information at home, in a safe place. It's a different world. You know, the last 5-6 years with technology, it's scary. It's just a different world. We have to protect ourselves. You know, if someone wants your information bad enough, they can get it, but don't help them out. Don't help them. Make sure you get rid of all of your, you know, you shred your documents, you go through the process. You know, we've heard it all lately. You know, make sure your trash isn't out in the open. You know, and a lot of times, like I said, when you're at home, make sure it's locked up in a safe place. Just like I got started, it was someone I knew. When I first did this, it was someone I knew.
Excellent advice right there from behind prison bars. Before we leave you, here are a few tips and lessons learned from today's show to help you fight crime. Number one, don't fall for the bait. Scam artists are always working to get your money by selling you products you don't need. Whether it's an employment poster you can get for free or advertising in office products you never ordered, be aware. If you catch someone stealing in your business, don't just fire the person and try to hide the perceived embarrassment. Get police involved and file charges. And finally, watch all of your accounts closely on a daily basis for anything out of the ordinary. Now, you heard Adrian Gunn say, shred it. Coming up this Saturday, April 21st, free shredding from BBB at the Red Lion in Idaho Falls and ITD in Boise. We'll see you 10 to noon, Saturday the 21st.